Humanity had spread across 43 worlds, each one a testament to their species' stubborn refusal to die quietly in the cosmic dark. From the ice-locked mining colonies of Erebus Prime to the storm-racked agricultural domes of New Sahara, humans had carved out existence where no rational species would dare to tread. They called themselves pioneers. The galaxy called them Deathworlders. The Galactic Confederation had watched humanity's expansion with a mixture of fascination and horror. In the 3 centuries since first contact, no species had proven as adaptable, as resilient, or as utterly unpredictable as these bipedal mammals from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Where other races required controlled environments, humans thrived in chaos. Where others sought stability, humans found opportunity in catastrophe. Captain Jackson Rivers stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, watching the blue-white marble of Haven Colony spin slowly beneath them. The colony had been established on a world that the Confederation's terraforming experts had declared marginally habitable with extensive life support. That was 15 years ago. Now Haven boasted a population of 2 million, sprawling cities that gleamed like jewels against the planet's harsh landscape, and agricultural yields that fed 3 neighboring systems. Rivers nodded, his weathered face creased with lines earned from a lifetime of commanding vessels on humanity's ever-expanding frontier. My grandfather used to tell me stories about Earth before the Exodus. Green fields stretching to the horizon, oceans you couldn't see across. Sometimes I wonder if we're trying to recreate paradise, or if we're just too stubborn to admit when we're beaten. Below them, Haven's capital city of New Detroit pulsed with the rhythms of industry and life. Factories hummed through the night cycle, their smokestacks reaching toward the alien stars like fingers of defiance. In the agricultural sectors, vast hydroponic farms stretched across the landscape, their bioluminescent growth chambers casting an ethereal glow across the terrain. But Rivers knew, as did every human in the fleet, that paradise was a luxury they could no longer afford. 3 months ago, the first reports had come in from the outer colonies, ships vanishing without distress signals. Entire mining operations found abandoned, their crews simply gone. The Confederation blamed pirates, system failures, even mass hallucinations. But Rivers had seen the classified reports. He'd studied the energy signatures left behind at the attack sites. This wasn't the work of pirates, sir. The voice crackled over the comm system, tinged with the kind of tension that made seasoned officers pay attention. We're receiving a priority transmission from Confederation Command. Eyes only. Admiral clearance. Rivers exchanged a look with Cross. Admiral Catherine Stone had been humanity's voice in the Confederation for nearly 2 decades. A diplomatic warrior who'd fought more battles in council chambers than most soldiers faced on battlefields. If she was sending eyes-only communications, the situation had moved far beyond diplomatic solutions. The hologram that materialized in the Prometheus's secure briefing room was a masterpiece of controlled fear. Admiral Stone's silver hair was pulled back in her customary severe bun, her uniform immaculate despite the circumstances. But her eyes held the weight of knowledge that no one should have to carry. Captain Rivers, Commander Cross. By the time you receive this message, the Confederation will have issued a galaxy-wide alert. We are no longer dealing with isolated incidents. Stone paused, and in that silence, the universe seemed to hold its breath. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected a massive fleet movement in the void sectors. Initial estimates suggest over 10,000 vessels of unknown configuration. Cross felt the blood drain from her face. 10,000 ships was larger than the combined fleets of half the Confederation's member species. The fleet is moving in formation toward inhabited space. Preliminary analysis indicates they will reach the outer colonies within 6 standard months. But here's what terrifies Confederation Command, and what they've asked me to relay to all human commanders in the field. The hologram flickered, and Stone leaned forward, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. These ships, they're not showing up on Confederation sensors. Only human technology is detecting them. Every other species' instruments read empty space, where we're seeing the largest armada in recorded history. The implications hit Rivers like a physical blow. If only human sensors could detect the threat, then either humanity possessed some unique technological advantage, or they were being specifically targeted by whatever intelligence commanded that vast fleet. Your orders are simple, Stone continued. Gather what intelligence you can, prepare for the worst. And remember, if the galaxy is about to face its darkest hour, humanity may be the only species that can see it coming. The hologram dissolved, leaving Rivers and Cross alone in the sudden quiet of the briefing room. Outside, Haven Colony continued its peaceful rotation, its citizens unaware that their universe had just become a far more dangerous place. Rivers was silent for a long moment, his mind racing through the tactical implications. Finally, he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of command decisions that would echo across the stars, the kind that doesn't plan on leaving anything alive behind them. In the depths of space, far beyond the light of any star, something ancient stirred to wakefulness. The entity that the humans would eventually know as High Admiral Veltar of the Nexus Swarm had existed for millennia, its consciousness distributed across a vast network of biomechanical ships that moved through the galaxy's dark spaces like antibodies through a cosmic bloodstream. For eons it had maintained the balance, eliminating species that grew too aggressive, too expansive, too dangerous to the galaxy's delicate equilibrium. Humanity had been on its watch list for 3 centuries. The species showed all the warning signs: rapid technological advancement, aggressive territorial expansion, an alarming tendency toward violence when threatened. But they were still young, still contained to their small corner of the galaxy. The Nexus had time to observe, to study, to determine the appropriate response. That time had now ended. The humans had committed an unforgivable transgression. They had begun to see. Veltar's consciousness flowed through the command ship, devouring dark, its thoughts rippling across kilometers of living metal and pulsing bio-neural networks. Around it, 10,000 vessels of the Nexus Swarm maintained perfect formation, each ship a masterpiece of predatory evolution honed across countless campaigns against countless species. The humans called themselves Deathworlders, Veltar mused with something approaching amusement. They had no concept of what death truly meant. They were about to learn. High Admiral. The voice belonged to Warseeker Nextho, one of Veltar's most trusted lieutenants. Like all Nexus warriors, Nextho was a perfect fusion of organic neural tissue and advanced machinery. A being optimized for one purpose: the eradication of threats to galactic stability. The target worlds are within sensor range. The human colonies appear unaware of our approach. Of course they are unaware, Veltar replied, its voice resonating through harmonic frequencies that would have driven most species mad. Their sensor technology is primitive, their understanding of space-time limited by their crude physics. Only their warships have detected us, and only because we have allowed it. Veltar had studied the human military extensively. Their captains were tactical thinkers, their soldiers fierce but predictable. They would fight conventionally, relying on firepower and determination. Shall we commence the first phase of cleansing? Nexthel's excitement was palpable, its biomechanical systems surging with anticipation. Not yet, Veltar commanded. First, we observe. The humans believe they are the galaxy's apex predators simply because they survived on a world that would kill most species within hours. They mistake environmental adaptation for true evolutionary superiority. We will show them the difference. The Nexus Swarm continued its approach, invisible to all sensors save those of humanity's most advanced vessels. In 6 months, they would reach the outer colonies. In 6 months, the galaxy would witness the systematic dismantling of a species that had grown too confident in its own legend. But as Veltar's consciousness swept across the approaching human worlds, analyzing their defenses and cataloging their weaknesses, a strange sensation flickered through the Nexus network. It was subtle, almost undetectable, a harmonic resonance that shouldn't have existed. For just a moment, Veltar felt as though something was looking back. Dr. Lydia Chen stood in the center of the quantum research facility on Haven Colony, surrounded by banks of humming computers and displays showing incomprehensible streams of data. At 34, she was already considered one of humanity's foremost experts on exotic physics, her work on quantum field manipulation having earned her both fame and the kind of enemies that came with revolutionary discoveries. Right now, she wished she'd chosen a simpler career, like asteroid mining or professional warfare. Run the calculations again, she ordered her research assistant, a young prodigy named David Kim, who'd graduated from MIT at 16 and still looked like he should be in high school. There has to be an error. I've run them 17 times, Dr. Chen, Kim replied, his voice tight with the strain of too many sleepless nights. The results are consistent. The quantum resonance patterns we're detecting aren't natural phenomena. Chen stared at the main display, which showed a three-dimensional map of local space, overlaid with waves of energy that pulsed through dimensions that most physicists believed were purely theoretical. The patterns were beautiful, hypnotic, and absolutely impossible according to everything humanity thought it knew about the universe. Artificial quantum manipulation on this scale would require technology centuries beyond our current capabilities, she murmured, more to herself than to Kim. The energy requirements alone would drain entire star systems. Unless, Kim said quietly, whoever is doing this has access to energy sources we can't even imagine. The implications were staggering. The quantum resonance patterns extended across hundreds of light-years, suggesting either a single massive source or a distributed network of incredible sophistication. More troubling, the patterns were shifting, evolving, as though responding to some vast intelligence. Chen's personal communicator chimed with an incoming priority message. Captain Rivers' face appeared on the small screen, and she could see immediately that whatever he wanted to discuss wasn't going to improve her day. Dr. Chen, I need you to prepare a full briefing on your quantum research for Admiral Stone. Everything you've discovered about the anomalous readings. Captain, I haven't had time to fully analyze. You have 6 hours, Rivers interrupted. And Doctor, whatever you found, I need you to focus on one question. Could these quantum patterns be related to a fleet of ships that only human sensors can detect? The connection terminated, leaving Chen staring at her reflection in the dark screen. Around her, the research facility hummed with activity as her team worked frantically to make sense of data that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic civilization. But in the back of her mind, a terrible possibility was taking shape. What if humanity's unique sensor capability wasn't a technological advantage at all? What if it was something else entirely, something that marked them as different from every other species in the galaxy? What if their ability to see the approaching fleet wasn't a gift but a target? Kim, she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the lab. I want you to run a new analysis. Compare the quantum patterns to human neural frequencies. Look for any correlations, any harmonic matches, human neural frequencies. Kim's confusion was evident. Dr. Chen, why would artificial quantum patterns match biological brain activity? Chen was already moving toward the main console, her fingers flying across the interface as she began pulling up databases of human neurological studies. Because if I'm right about this, we're not just looking at advanced technology. We're looking at something that's specifically designed to interact with human consciousness. As the computers began their analysis, Chen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the facility's climate control. Outside, Haven Colony continued its peaceful existence, its people unaware that their universe had just become exponentially stranger and more dangerous. But in the depths of space, something that had been waiting for millennia finally smiled. The hunt could begin. Admiral Catherine Stone stood before the assembled representatives of the Galactic Confederation, her expression carved from granite and determination. The great council chamber of Station Unity stretched around her like a cathedral of democracy, its soaring architecture designed to inspire cooperation among the galaxy's diverse species. Today, it felt more like a tomb. The evidence is irrefutable, Stone declared, her voice carrying across the vast chamber without need for amplification. A massive hostile fleet is approaching inhabited space. Our deep space monitoring stations have confirmed vessel counts exceeding 12,000 individual ships, arranged in attack formations and maintaining course toward the outer colonies. A ripple of translation whispers swept through the chamber as the Confederation's various species processed this information through their neural interfaces. At the speaker's podium, Prime Counselor Rathkiel of the Hegemony, a crystalline being whose thought patterns moved like liquid light, raised one of his 4 arms in a gesture that demanded attention. Admiral Stone, Rathkiel's voice resonated with harmonic frequencies that spoke of vast patience and even vaster authority. The Confederation's sensor networks show no evidence of this alleged fleet. Our monitoring stations, which utilize technology far more sophisticated than your human instruments, detect only background cosmic radiation in the sectors you claim to have surveyed. Stone had expected this response. In the 3 days since her initial briefing to the human fleet commanders, Confederation scientists had conducted their own investigations. Every major species had deployed their most advanced sensor platforms to verify humanity's claims. All had returned the same result: empty space where humans insisted a vast armada was approaching. With respect, Prime Counselor, the fact that your sensors cannot detect this threat does not make it less real. Stone activated her holographic display, flooding the chamber with tactical data that painted a terrifying picture of organized annihilation. These ships are using some form of stealth technology that specifically affects non-human sensor systems. The accusation hit the chamber like a physical blow. Around the amphitheater, representatives from dozens of species began gesticulating in their various forms of debate. The arachnids chittered among themselves in ultrasonic frequencies. The gas giants pulsed with bioluminescent anger. The machine consciousness delegation simply observed with electronic eyes that missed nothing. Stone felt the weight of 3 centuries of human-alien relations pressing down on her shoulders. Humanity had always been the outsiders in galactic civilization. Too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to fight when others sought diplomacy. Now, in their moment of greatest need, that reputation was becoming their greatest liability. "I am not asking you to take our word for it," Stone continued, her voice cutting through the diplomatic chaos. "I am asking you to prepare for a possibility that could end galactic civilization as we know it. If we are wrong, you lose nothing but preparation time. If you are wrong—" She let the sentence hang in the air, its implications clear to every being in the chamber. Prime Counselor, Keel consulted with his advisory collective through direct neural link, a conversation that played out in cascades of colored light across his crystalline surface. When he spoke again, his tone carried the weight of consensus reached across multiple minds. "Admiral Stone, the Confederation has always valued humanity's contributions to galactic peace and prosperity. Your species' unique perspective has often provided insights that others might miss. However, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. We cannot mobilize the combined fleets of 47 worlds based solely on sensor readings that only one species can verify." "Perhaps," suggested Counselor Zephyllon of the Ethereal Communion, its voice carrying the weight of beings who existed partially outside normal space-time, "the solution lies not in military preparation, but in investigation. If this threat is real, it will eventually become detectable by conventional sensors. If it is not, then humanity's claims will be revealed as either mistake or deception." The chamber fell silent as the implications of Zephyllon's words settled over the assembly. They were willing to wait, to observe, to verify. While 12,000 unknown ships approached inhabited space with intentions that could only be hostile. "Then humanity will prepare alone," she said quietly. "We will defend our colonies with whatever resources we can muster, and when the shooting starts, I hope the Confederation remembers this moment. I hope you remember that we tried to warn you." She turned and walked from the chamber, leaving behind the whispered debates and harmonic discussions of species who had never known true existential threat. Behind her, the political machinery of galactic civilization continued its slow, deliberate process of consensus building and evidence evaluation. 12,000 kilometers away, invisible to every sensor system except those of human design, the Nexus swarm adjusted course toward Haven Colony. The humans had increased their patrol schedules, Thul noted with something approaching professional respect. Their warships moved in complex patterns around the colony world, their sensors sweeping space in search of threats they could barely comprehend. It was admirable in a primitive way, like watching small predators circle a wounded animal, unaware that apex predators stalked them from the shadows. "Warseeker," the ship's bio-neural network whispered directly into Thul's consciousness. "High Admiral Veltar requests your presence in the command nexus." Thul disentangled its awareness from the ship's systems, feeling the brief disorientation that always accompanied the transition from collective consciousness back to individual thought. The Nexus swarm had evolved beyond the limitations of singular minds, but sometimes the old patterns were necessary for focused action. The command nexus of the devouring dark was a vast spherical chamber lined with living metal that pulsed with the heartbeat of the fleet. At its center, High Admiral Veltar hung suspended in a web of bio-neural connections that linked its consciousness to every ship, every weapon, every warrior in the swarm. It was the ultimate fusion of organic intuition and mechanical precision, a being designed for the singular purpose of eliminating threats to galactic stability. The humans are more interesting than our initial assessments suggested, Veltar observed as Anixthal approached. Around them, tactical displays showed real-time feeds from thousands of reconnaissance drones, each one invisible to human sensors but perfectly capable of observing their activities. Their response patterns indicate strategic thinking beyond mere reaction. Sturl studied the displays, watching as human patrol ships adjusted their formations with clockwork precision. They suspect we are already here, High Admiral. Their movements suggest they are probing for weaknesses in our stealth fields. Correct, but observe more carefully. Veltar highlighted specific elements of the human fleet movements, and suddenly the pattern became clear. The patrol ships weren't just searching. They were creating a sensor network that overlapped and reinforced itself, gradually mapping the space around their colony with increasing resolution. They are attempting to detect us through collective analysis rather than individual sensor capability. Anixthal realized. Primitive, but innovative. Innovation, Veltar mused, is both humanity's greatest strength and their most dangerous weakness. They solve problems through creativity rather than proven methodology. This makes them unpredictable, which presents tactical challenges, but it also makes them impulsive, which we can exploit. The High Admiral gestured, and the displays shifted to show a new set of data, quantum resonance patterns that rippled through space around the human colony. Anixthal felt a spike of confusion as it processed the information. High Admiral, these readings suggest the humans are conducting large-scale quantum experiments. The energy patterns are unusual. They are attempting to understand us, Veltar replied. One of their scientists has begun investigating the quantum signatures our passage creates in space-time. Her research is surprisingly sophisticated. Through the bio-neural link, Veltar shared its observations of Dr. Lydia Chen's work. Anixthal felt a moment of genuine surprise as it processed the humans' theoretical frameworks and experimental methodologies. For a species only recently emerged from their homeworld, their understanding of exotic physics was remarkably advanced. Should we eliminate the researcher? Anixthal asked. Her investigations could compromise our strategic advantages. No, Veltar decided after a moment's consideration. Her research serves our purposes. The more the humans understand about our capabilities, the more they will fear what we represent. Fear makes them act rashly. Rash action makes them predictable. The High Admiral paused, its consciousness flowing through data streams that connected every aspect of the Nexus Swarm's operations. When it spoke again, its voice carried undertones of anticipation that sent ripples through the command nexus. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. I want psychological pressure applied to their outer colonies, ships appearing and vanishing on their sensors, communication interference, supply disruptions. Nothing that causes immediate harm, but everything that creates uncertainty and fear. And if they respond with military action. Veltar's reply resonated with the accumulated wisdom of countless successful campaigns against countless vanquished species. Then we will remind the galaxy why the Nexus Swarm has maintained galactic balance for 10,000 years. We will show them what happens when a species forgets its place in the cosmic order. As Anixthal departed to carry out its orders, Veltar turned its attention back to the tactical displays. The human colony world continued its peaceful rotation, its citizens unaware that they had become the focal point of a conflict that would determine the future of galactic civilization. But something nagged at the edges of Veltar's consciousness, a subtle wrongness in the quantum patterns surrounding the human worlds. The sensation was familiar, like an echo from the deepest memories of the Nexus Collective. Somewhere in the vast archives of absorbed civilizations, a warning whispered across the millennia. Some species, the ancient voices suggested, were not meant to be prey. Captain Jackson Rivers stood in the tactical center of the UES Prometheus, watching displays that showed a universe gone mad. Over the past week, reports had flooded in from across human space, phantom contacts appearing and disappearing on sensors, communication arrays failing at critical moments, supply convoys vanishing between jump points only to reappear days later with their crews unconscious and their cargo holds empty. "Sir," Commander Cross approached with a datapad clutched in her hands like a weapon. "Intelligence analysis from the Outer Colonies Division. The pattern is unmistakable. Someone is conducting systematic reconnaissance and psychological warfare operations against our shipping lanes." Rivers accepted the pad, his eyes scanning reports that painted a picture of coordinated harassment on a scale that defied explanation. 17 separate incidents across 12 systems, all showing the same characteristics: brief contact with unidentified vessels, temporary system failures, and crews reporting lost time with no memory of what had occurred. Rivers nodded grimly. He'd seen psychological warfare before, but never executed with such precision. Their unknown enemies were playing a game of chess while humanity was still learning the rules. "Captain Rivers to the bridge." The voice of Lieutenant Commander Park crackled over the comm system with an urgency that made both officers straighten. The bridge of the Prometheus was a masterpiece of human engineering, banks of displays showing everything from local space conditions to fleet-wide communications networks, all centered around the captain's chair that had commanded humanity's exploration of 16 different star systems. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Chen on Haven Colony. She says it's urgent," and Park hesitated. "Sir, she sounds terrified." The main display activated, showing Chen's face against the background of her quantum research facility. Rivers had known the physicist for 3 years, had seen her maintain composure through equipment failures, budget crises, and the kind of theoretical problems that drove lesser minds to despair. He'd never seen her afraid. "Go ahead, Doctor." Chen activated her own displays, filling the Prometheus's main screen with complex mathematical models and energy pattern analyses that hurt to look at directly. "The quantum signatures we've been tracking aren't just evidence of advanced technology. They're evidence of something far more significant." She highlighted specific elements of the data, and suddenly patterns began emerging from the chaos. Rivers felt his mouth go dry as the implications became clear. "These aren't ships, are they?" he asked quietly. "Not entirely. The energy patterns suggest organic mechanical hybrids on a massive scale. But that's not the worst part." Chen's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Captain, the quantum resonance patterns we're detecting, they're specifically designed to interact with human neural frequencies. Whatever is out there, it's not just technologically sophisticated. It's been studying us, learning how our minds work." The bridge fell silent except for the ambient hum of ship systems. Rivers felt the weight of command pressing down on him like a physical force as he processed the implications of Chen's discovery. "Doctor," he said finally, "are you telling me that this fleet has been customized to attack human beings specifically?" "I'm telling you that we're dealing with an intelligence that understands human consciousness better than we understand it ourselves. And Captain, the quantum patterns are intensifying. Whatever they're planning to do to us, they're almost ready to do it." Before Rivers could respond, every display on the bridge flickered and went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing the command center in red shadows that turned familiar faces into masks of worry. Then, as suddenly as it had failed, the main display activated again. But instead of showing Dr. Chen, it showed something else entirely. The being that appeared on screen was a nightmare fusion of organic curves and mechanical precision, its form shifting and flowing as though it existed partially outside normal space-time. When it spoke, its voice resonated with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears entirely, speaking directly to the primitive fears that lurked in the deepest corners of human consciousness. "Greetings, Captain Rivers," the entity said. And somehow Rivers knew that it was addressing him personally, that it knew exactly who he was and why he was important. "I am High Admiral Veltar of the Nexus Swarm. I believe it is time we spoke directly." Rivers felt every instinct screaming at him to cut the transmission, to raise shields, to run. Instead, he forced himself to remain calm, to project the kind of steady authority that had carried him through 20 years of command decisions. "What do you want?" Veltar's form rippled with what might have been amusement. "What I have always wanted, Captain. Balance. Your species has grown beyond its appropriate boundaries. You have become a disruption to the galactic order that has maintained peace for millennia. This cannot be allowed to continue. So you're here to destroy us. I am here to restore equilibrium. Your species will be adjusted to fit properly within the cosmic hierarchy. Some of you may survive the process. Consider it an evolutionary opportunity. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge of the Prometheus in stunned silence. Rivers stared at the dark screen for a long moment, feeling the weight of everything they'd just learned settling over him like a shroud. All stations, he ordered finally. Battle stations. And get me Admiral Stone on priority channel. Tell her we're out of time for diplomatic solutions. As klaxons began sounding throughout the ship, Rivers couldn't shake the feeling that they'd just crossed a threshold from which there would be no return. The war for humanity's survival had just begun, and they were about to discover just how alone they really were in the vast, hostile darkness between the stars. The attack came at dawn. Haven Colony time. High Admiral Veltar had chosen the moment with characteristic precision, that liminal hour when night yielded to day, when colonial defenses were at their most relaxed, when human biorhythms dipped toward their daily nadir. Across Haven's major population centers, citizens were beginning their morning routines, unaware that 12,000 ships had just dropped out of stealth directly above their world. Captain Rivers felt the Prometheus shudder as the first energy discharges lit up local space like a malevolent aurora. Through the bridge's main viewport, he watched in horrified fascination as the Nexus fleet materialized around Haven Colony, vast biomechanical constructs that moved with organic fluidity, their hulls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of intelligence both alien and ancient. Defensive positions, Rivers commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos of battle stations' alarms. All ships, pattern Delta 7, protect the orbital stations at all costs. The human fleet, 37 vessels ranging from nimble corvettes to the massive dreadnought US Indomitable, moved into formation with practiced precision. It was an impressive display of tactical coordination, the kind of military response that had earned humanity respect among the galaxy's warrior cultures. Against 12,000 Nexus ships, it looked like children playing with toys. The first wave of attacks came not as energy beams or kinetic projectiles, but as something far more terrifying. Streams of quantum-charged particles that passed through conventional shields as though they didn't exist. Where they touched human vessels, electronics failed, life support systems crashed, and crew members simply stopped. "Captain?" Commander Cross's voice was tight with panic. "The Resilient and New Frontier aren't responding to communications. Their crews appear to be unconscious, but life signs are stable." Rivers watched in growing horror as two of his finest ships drifted helplessly through the battle zone, their weapons silent, their engines dark. Whatever the Nexus was doing to them, it was surgical in its precision, disabling without destroying, capturing without conquest. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Park called from the sensor station, "I'm reading massive quantum distortions around the disabled vessels. It's like something is interfacing directly with their neural systems." Through the tactical display, Rivers could see the terrible efficiency of the Nexus assault. Human ships were being systematically isolated and neutralized, their crews rendered unconscious by weapons that attacked consciousness itself. Within minutes, half the defensive fleet was drifting powerless, their personnel alive but unresponsive. But even as horror filled his heart, Rivers felt something else stirring. The same stubborn determination that had carried humanity across 43 worlds, the same refusal to yield that had made them legends among the galaxy's Deathworlder species. "All remaining ships," he ordered, his voice carrying across the fleet communications network, full offensive pattern. "Target the largest Nexus vessels. If they want to fight, we'll give them one they'll remember." The remaining human ships, 17 vessels crewed by beings who had never learned when to quit, launched themselves at the Nexus swarm with the kind of desperate courage that made observers throughout the galaxy pause in admiration. Energy beams lanced through space. Kinetic missiles streaked toward alien hulls, and for a brief shining moment it seemed as though determination might triumph over overwhelming odds. Then Veltar decided to stop playing. Dr. Lydia Chen felt the ground shake beneath her feet as the first Nexus bombardment struck Haven Colony's surface. Through the reinforced windows of her research facility, She could see the alien ships descending through the atmosphere like falling stars, their biomechanical forms casting shadows across the colonial capital. "David," she shouted to her assistant, who was frantically working at the main computer console. "Are the quantum resonance generators online?" "Almost," Kim replied, his fingers flying across the interface with desperate speed. "But Dr. Chen, even if we can establish a coherent field, we don't know if the theory will work in practice." "But the Nexus technology could more than that. It was specifically designed to exploit those patterns, turning humanity's unique consciousness against them. Unless Chen's theory was correct. Unless human consciousness could be weaponized as effectively as it could be targeted." "Field generators at 60%, Kim announced. 70, 80, 90%. "Dr. Chen, if we're going to do this." Now Chen slammed her hand down on the activation control, sending a pulse of quantum-engineered energy rippling outward from Haven Colony at the speed of thought. For a moment nothing seemed to happen. The battle continued its inexorable course, human resistance crumbling before Nexus superiority. Then somewhere in the depths of space, something changed. High Admiral Veltar felt the disturbance ripple through the Nexus collective consciousness, like a discordant note in a perfect symphony. At first it seemed insignificant. A minor quantum fluctuation originating from the planet's surface, probably some desperate human attempt at jamming their neural interface weapons. Then the fluctuation reached the disabled human vessels. Across the battle zone, crews that had been unconscious for nearly an hour suddenly began awakening. But they weren't just regaining consciousness. They were emerging with something new, something that made Veltar's ancient mind recoil in recognition. The humans were networked. Captain Maria Santos of the UES Resilient opened her eyes to find her bridge bathed in an ethereal blue glow that seemed to emanate from every surface, every console, every member of her crew. But more than that, she could feel them, not just their presence, but their thoughts, their emotions, their tactical assessments flowing through her mind like streams of living data. "Engineering here, Captain," came the reply from Chief Petty Officer Jackson. But Santos could hear the wonder in his voice. "Ma'am, I can feel every system on this ship. Not just monitor them. Feel them like they're extensions of my own body. Through the quantum network that Dr. Chen's generators had activated." Santos found herself connected not just to her own crew, but to every awakened human in the battle zone. She could sense Captain Rivers aboard the Prometheus, feel his tactical awareness merging with her own. She could touch the minds of fighter pilots as they danced between Nexus vessels, their enhanced reflexes now operating at superhuman levels. For the first time in the battle, the humans were thinking as one. "All vessels," Santos transmitted, but the communication went deeper than mere radio waves. "Form up on my position. Let's show these bastards what happens when you pick a fight with Earth's children." But it was more than just improved coordination. The quantum network was amplifying human consciousness itself, turning individual awareness into something approaching collective omniscience. Human crews could sense Nexus ships before they appeared on sensors, could anticipate tactical movements through intuitive leaps that bypassed rational analysis. Veltar watched in growing alarm as the tactical situation shifted with impossible speed. Human vessels that should have been outmatched were now dancing between Nexus attacks with preternatural grace, their weapons finding weaknesses that shouldn't have been detectable. "Warseeker Enixthal," Veltar commanded across the bioneural link, "explain what we are witnessing." "High Admiral, the humans appear to have activated some form of collective consciousness network. Their tactical responses have improved by several orders of magnitude. Collective consciousness is impossible for their species," Veltar replied. But even as it spoke, doubt crept into its ancient certainty. Human neural architecture is fundamentally individualistic. They lack the biomechanical interfaces necessary for true network integration. But the evidence was undeniable. Human ships were now operating with a level of coordination that rivaled the Nexus swarm itself. More disturbing, they seemed to be learning in real time, their tactics evolving with each exchange to counter Nexus strategies. "High Admiral," Nemuel's voice carried undertones of something the Nexus rarely experienced: uncertainty. "Perhaps we underestimated this species. Their consciousness patterns are unlike anything in our archives." Veltar extended its awareness across the battle zone. studying the quantum resonance patterns that flowed between human vessels. What it discovered sent chills through the collective mind of the Nexus swarm. The humans weren't just networked, they were evolving. Admiral Catherine Stone materialized on the bridge of the UES Indomitable via emergency transport, having abandoned the diplomatic facilities of Station Unity when reports of the Haven colony attack reached Confederation command. Around her, the massive dreadnought hummed with barely contained power as it prepared to jump into the battle zone. Admiral on deck, Captain Elizabeth Hayes called out, but Stone waved away the formalities. "Status report, Captain. How bad is it?" "Ma'am, initial reports suggested we were facing total annihilation, but something's changed in the last 30 minutes. Our forces have not only stabilized, they're actually pushing the enemy back." Stone studied the tactical displays with the eye of someone who'd commanded fleets through 3 separate interstellar conflicts. What she saw defied every principle of warfare she'd learned over 4 decades of service. Human ships were moving in perfect synchronization, their formations flowing like liquid as they engaged targets with devastating precision. Energy signatures showed weapon systems operating at 27% of rated capacity levels that should have resulted in catastrophic overloads. Yet somehow the ships were not only maintaining integrity but actually improving their performance in real time. "Captain Hayes," Stone said quietly, "are our people still human out there?" It was Hayes's turn to study the displays, her expression troubled. "Mon, I honestly don't know. The quantum resonance readings suggest they're all somehow connected, sharing information at the speed of thought, but their individual biosignatures remain normal. They're still human. Just more than human." Through the Indomitable's communication array, Stone could hear fragments of the battle communications. What she heard made her blood run cold and her heart soar simultaneously. "Target acquired. Bearing 27 Mark IV. I can feel its weak points. Confirmed. Weapons synchronized across all vessels. Fire on my mark. Watch the left flank. I sense movement in the quantum foam. 3 ships decloaking in 15 seconds. How can you sense? Never mind. All units prepare for contact." They were operating on intuition and instinct, making tactical decisions that bypassed rational analysis entirely. It should have been chaos. Instead, it was the most perfectly coordinated military action Stone had ever witnessed. "Ma'am," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Chen on Haven Colony." Chen's face appeared on the main screen, her features haggard but triumphant. Behind her, the quantum research facility hummed with activity as banks of exotic equipment channeled energies that human science had only theorized about until now. "Admiral Stone," Chen began without preamble, "the quantum network is stable, but it's also growing. Every human consciousness that comes into contact with the field is automatically integrated. We're creating something that's never existed before, a true collective human awareness." "Doctor, what are the risks? What are we becoming?" Chen hesitated, and in that pause, Stone heard echoes of every Faustian bargain in human history. "I don't know," Chen admitted finally. "The network is evolving faster than we can study it. Our people are still individually human, but they're also becoming something more. The question is whether we can control it, or whether it will control us." Before Stone could respond, klaxons began sounding throughout the Indomitable. On the tactical display, new contacts were appearing at the edge of sensor range, not Nexus vessels but ships bearing the insignia of a dozen Confederation species. Admiral Captain Hayes reported with barely contained excitement, "Confederation reinforcements are jumping in system. Looks like the cavalry has arrived after all." "Open a channel to all Confederation vessels," Stone ordered. "Priority Alpha clearance." The response came immediately from the hegemony dreadnought Crystal Harmony. Prime Admiral Kethvash appeared on screen, his crystalline form pulsing with the urgency of rapid-fire thought processes. "Admiral Stone," Kethvash began, "Confederation Command has authorized full military intervention. We are prepared to assist in repelling the Nexus incursion. Prime Admiral, I need to warn you, our tactical situation has evolved. Human forces have undergone modifications that allow for enhanced coordination. You may find our combat methods unusual." "Understood, Admiral." The Confederation has encountered human tactical innovation before. We are prepared to adapt our strategies accordingly." Stone closed her eyes for a moment, knowing that she was about to make a decision that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what humanity could become. "Then let's finish this together," she said. "All ships prepare for combined operations, and may whatever gods are listening have mercy on us all." High Admiral Veltar felt the arrival of Confederation reinforcements like a physical blow to its consciousness. Through the bioneural network, it could sense the dismay of its subordinates as they processed the tactical implications. 12,000 Nexus vessels had been engaged in what should have been a simple pacification operation. Now they faced not only a mysteriously enhanced human fleet, but the combined military might of the galaxy's major powers. More troubling was the nature of human enhancement they were witnessing. Veltar's ancient memories contained records of countless species that had achieved collective consciousness through technological augmentation. But this was different. The humans had somehow achieved network integration while maintaining individual identity, a combination that should have been impossible. "Warseeker and Ixthol," Veltar commanded. "Initiate withdrawal sequence. We are no longer achieving our strategic objectives." "High Admiral, the Nexus swarm has never retreated from a pacification operation. To do so now would be to admit failure before the entire galaxy." Veltar's consciousness rippled with something that might have been frustration. To continue this engagement would be to risk the destruction of the swarm itself. "These humans are not what we believed them to be." Worse, they were learning. Each exchange revealed new tactics, new applications of their enhanced consciousness, that pushed the boundaries of what Veltar had thought possible. If this continued, the humans would not merely resist pacification. They would begin hunting the Nexus itself. "Begin phase withdrawal," Veltar ordered. "But before we depart, I want to understand what we are truly facing." The High Admiral extended its consciousness across the quantum foam, probing the edges of the human network with the delicate touch of a being that had studied galactic civilization for millennia. What it found there made its ancient mind recoil in recognition and terror. The humans weren't just networked. They weren't just evolving. They were awakening. In the deepest layers of the quantum field that connected human consciousness, Veltar sensed something vast and patient stirring to wakefulness. It was as though humanity itself was becoming aware of its own existence, as a species, not just as individuals, but as a collective organism with its own intelligence, its own purpose, its own terrible potential. High Admiral Onyx Sithol's query carried undertones of concern as it sensed Veltar's distress. "We are leaving," Veltar declared with finality. "Signal all vessels full withdrawal, maximum acceleration, and transmit a priority alert to Nexus Command. The human species has achieved something we believed impossible. They must be reclassified from emerging threat to apex predator immediately." As the Nexus swarm began its retreat from Haven Colony, Veltar cast one final look at the human fleet through its sensory networks. The vessels were regrouping, their crews still connected by the quantum network that had turned them from individuals into something approaching a new form of life. In 10,000 years of maintaining galactic balance, the Nexus had never encountered a species that could evolve in real time during combat. They had never faced an enemy that became more dangerous with every moment of contact. They had never met their match. Until now. 3 hours after the Nexus withdrawal, Captain Jackson Rivers stood in the observation lounge of the Prometheus, watching Haven Colony's cities gleam against the planet's surface like jewels scattered across velvet. Around the world, Confederation vessels maintained protective formations while repair crews worked to restore the damaged human ships. But Rivers barely noticed the activity. His attention was focused inward, on the quantum network that still connected him to every human consciousness in the system. He could feel Dr. Chen in her laboratory, analyzing the data from humanity's first collective battle. He could sense Admiral Stone coordinating with Confederation commanders, her diplomatic skills stretched to their limits as she tried to explain what humanity had become. Most powerfully, he could feel the crew of his own ship, their thoughts, their emotions, their shared sense of wonder and terror at what they had experienced. They were still individuals, still capable of independent thought and action, but they were also something more now. Something that had never existed before in the galaxy's long history. "Captain?" Commander Cross approached carefully, her mental presence preceding her physical arrival in a way that still felt miraculous and unsettling. The quantum field generators are showing signs of instability. Dr. Chen thinks the network might begin degrading within the next few hours. Rivers nodded, feeling a complex mixture of relief and loss. The collective consciousness had given them the power to face impossible odds and emerge victorious. But it had also shown them glimpses of what humanity might become and the responsibilities that would come with such transformation. Are our people afraid of losing the connection? He asked. Some are. Others are afraid of keeping it. Cross moved to stand beside him at the viewport, her reflection ghost-like in the reinforced transper steel. What we experienced out there, it was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The question is whether we're ready for that kind of change. Through the network, Rivers could sense the debates raging throughout human space. As word of the battle spread, some called for immediate expansion of the Quantum Consciousness Project, arguing that collective awareness was humanity's destiny among the stars. Others demanded the technology be destroyed, claiming that individual identity was too precious to sacrifice for any strategic advantage. But Rivers knew, as did every human still connected to the network, that the choice might no longer be theirs to make. Sir, Cross said quietly, I'm reading something on the long-range sensors. Ships approaching from the outer system. Rivers felt his heart skip as he recognized the energy signatures. More human vessels, but these were different, modified with technology that seemed to resonate with the quantum field surrounding Haven Colony. It's spreading, Cross whispered, her voice carrying awe and terror in equal measure. Through the viewport, Rivers watched as the first of the modified ships entered Haven's orbital space. Its hull gleamed with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in rhythm with the quantum field generators, and he could feel its crew's excitement as they prepared to join the network permanently. Humanity had tasted godhood. Now they would have to decide whether to embrace it or reject it, and whether they would have that choice at all. Commander, Rivers said finally, his voice carrying the weight of decisions that would echo across the galaxy. Signal Admiral Stone. Tell her we need to convene an emergency session with the Confederation Council. It's time to let the galaxy know what we've become. As the quantum network continued its expansion across human space, connecting minds that had never touched, creating possibilities that had never existed, Rivers felt the future stretching out before them like an infinite ocean of stars. Humanity had survived its first test as a networked species. Now they would discover whether the galaxy was ready for what they might become. In the depths of space, fleeing toward the galactic rim at maximum velocity, High Admiral Veltar of the Nexus Swarm transmitted its final report to the collective consciousness that had guided galactic civilization for 10 millennia. Subject Species Classification Update. Homo sapiens. Sapiens. Priority Maximum Alert Summary. Humanity has achieved collective consciousness. While maintaining individual identity, they are no longer a threat to be eliminated. They are a force of nature to be respected, avoided, or perhaps allied with. Recommendation: immediate reclassification from emerging threat to apex predator species. All Nexus operations in human space to be suspended indefinitely. Further contact only on diplomatic terms. Personal note: in 10,000 years of maintaining galactic balance, I have never encountered a species capable of evolution during active combat. The humans didn't just adapt to our tactics, they transcended them. The galaxy has a new apex species. They call themselves Deathworlders. After today, I understand why. The age of human legends has begun. In the years that followed the Battle of Haven Colony, humanity would face countless challenges as they learned to balance individual identity with collective consciousness. Some would embrace the network completely, becoming post-human entities of incredible capability and wisdom. Others would choose to remain unaugmented, serving as bridges between humanity's past and its emerging future. But all would carry the knowledge that when faced with impossible odds, when confronted by forces that sought their extinction, they had not merely survived. They had become something greater. And across the galaxy, in the council chambers of 1,000 worlds and the command centers of countless fleets, a new understanding would take root. Humanity was no longer just another species exploring the stars. They were the species that had looked into the abyss of galactic warfare and made it blink first. They were legends born from fire, forged in the crucible of collective consciousness, and tempered by the unbreakable will that had carried them from their homeworld to the stars. And they were just getting started.